Throughout the history of Jujutsu Kaisen, there have been two characters that dwarfed over everyone else in strength, Gojo and Sukuna. The strength gap was so big that the rest of the cast couldn't even dream to reach that level. So much so that if Gojo and Sukuna, if they were not weakened and at their full strength, would be able to take down the entirety of the verse. But that was true until Mudolu. You see, in Mudolu, Yuji had gained a level of strength that we had never seen from anyone in the verse, including Gojo and Sukuna. So today we are here to discuss what if Yuji faced Gojo and Sukuna. So basically this is gonna be a 1v1 and a 2v1 scenario as well, in which round 1 is gonna be Yuji versus Gojo, round 2 is gonna be Yuji versus Sukuna, and round 3 is gonna be Yuji versus Gojo and Sukuna together. So let's begin this video. This is Mudolu Yuji, peak evolution of Yuji with black flash at will, advanced blood manipulation at a level that we have never seen before, full shrine beyond the uses of even Sukuna, soul attacking targets, poison blood, and an open barrier domain, which I'm not really sure, but we can speculate that he pretty much has it because he was able to basically eliminate every single moveset that Sukuna had. So him being able to open barrier domain is not out of the realm of possibility, and also that he can probably do it. Like, I'm 90% sure that Yuji can use an open barrier domain just like how Sukuna did. So we're doing this in 3 rounds, as I explained before: Yuji versus Gojo, Yuji versus Sukuna, and Gojo and Sukuna versus Yuji. This is completely unbiased. I am biased towards Gojo, but we have to be unbiased here. With what Yuji has shown, this is gonna be an interesting video. So first, we're gonna dive into Gojo's toolkit. He has the Infinity and Untouchable Barrier, the greatest defense in the series, the 6 Eyes, with which he gets basically perfect control of cursed energy and manipulation of cursed energy as well. Blue and red, attraction on repulsion. Hollow purple, basically almost an erasure attack. The only way to survive hollow purple is if you are kind of layering yourself with domain amplification, the same way kind of Sukuna survived it. Top tier in terms of hand-to-hand combat, which is true. Gojo is probably the second best hand-to-hand combat character we have ever seen, outside of Yuji, of course. And then reverse curse technique, domain expansion, unlimited void, with the craziest show hit effect that we have ever seen. Normally, Infinity is kind of like a hack that gives Gojo an instant win, even when he's going up against a character which is significantly stronger than him. That's why Gojo is often paired up in matches against other verses, even though those verses that Gojo is being compared to kind of completely outclass him in terms of power. But the thing always comes down to, can they get through Infinity? And in this case, Mudolu Yuji has domain amplification, and you would be crazy to think that he doesn't, which neutralizes Infinity on contact. That turns it into a close range. Close range combat, and close range combat, Yuji kind of dominates because of the reason I'm about to say. First of all is black flash on will. Even Gojo can do that, and because of which Yuji's output is gonna be at max all the time. You have to remember, even when Gojo and Sukuna fought each other, even though they were never gonna run out of cursed energy, their output would get lowered as they got weaker. But we do know that Black Flash constantly ramps up your speed and your output, and if Yuji can land that on will, which he can, then his output is gonna be at max all the time. Not to mention, he can do basically soul damaging strikes, right? And then he has poisoned blood, and we do know that the only way to kill a reverse curse technique user is by either cutting off their head or doing what Sukuna did by basically chopping them off in half, to the point that RCT is basically not even a question, or by poison. If Yuji can get his poisonous blood on Gojo or Sukuna, then they're gonna have a hard time recovering from that. We don't know if reverse curse technique can heal poison, and if it can, then Gojo and Sukuna are gonna be fine, but that's just not gonna happen. And also raw physical stats, the Ryuji at his prime, at modulo, kind of raw dogs everyone in the verse, so that's that. And also you have to keep in mind that Yuji's base dismantle, not cleave, a base dismantle rivals Sukuna's Fuga inside his domain and Gojo's hollow purple in terms of destructive damage. That's crazy, because if Yuji can land one blow on Gojo or Sukuna with that level of dismantle, it's gonna do some serious damage. And if Yuji can somehow touch Gojo and land a cleave, boy, we are looking at some crazy amount of damage. That might actually be the end of Gojo. But, you know, Gojo obviously has some win conditions as well. I already stated it down. Since Yuji can use domain amplification, and since domain amplification is basically cursed energy as well, he can land black flashes on Gojo at will while bypassing his infinity, meaning Yuji can do some serious damage. And Gojo really doesn't have much of a chance in hand-to-hand combat because of the sheer fact that Yuji can probably use blood manipulation to make his strikes even stronger than it already was. So, like, it's kind of redundant to say this, but Gojo cannot win in hand-to-hand combat. If it was anyone else in the verse, including Sukuna, and I was to say that Gojo would win in a hand-to-hand combat against everyone else, I would stand on that. But this is Prime Yuji, who can land Black Flash on will, has 60 years plus of training to hone his skills. It's probably his efficiency with cursed energy is probably on Gojo's level with the 6 eyes. He probably is above Sukuna and then like on Gojo's level in terms of cursed energy efficiency, and that is with someone with the 6 eyes. So you can just imagine what the hell is gonna happen, right? So the only win con that Gojo truly has is one and only Infinite Void. If he lands Infinite Void on Yuji, then he wins, plain and simple. But it's not as easy as it seems. Let's just say Yuji and Gojo open their domains at the same time. They both have same refinement. Even that is a big issue because Yuji has 60 years worth of training to the point where he might just dwarf Gojo's and Sukuna's domain in terms of refinement. But let's just lowball Yuji and say that his and the Gojo's domain are equal in terms of refinement. And even if that's the case, we saw that whoever can win inside the domain clash kind of just wins the entire domain. And I already established it before that Yuji kind of dominates Gojo in terms of hand-to-hand combat, and Gojo is gonna get damaged enough to the point he won't be able to maintain unlimited void, and it's just wraps from there. We don't know what the hell Yuji's domain is. If we can say that it's like a shrine version which kind of attacks the soul while attacking your body as well, then it's kind of over. It kind of like basically negates durability, even though Gojo's durability is probably like top 3 in the verse. There's nothing that he can do against Yuji's domain because it directly targets the soul, and healing the soul is much harder than healing your normal body. So Gojo is kind of cooked. He doesn't have any kind of way to actually win this fight, and I'm saying that while being completely honest. So Yuji kind of just wins this fight low to mid difficulty. I know many people are gonna be mad, but that's just the way this is. Like, even if Yuji lands like a 1 blood manipulation solid strike on Gojo, the poison is gonna kick in and is gonna affect Gojo eventually. So again, it's just a matter of time. So yeah, let's jump into round 2. Modulo Yuji versus Sukuna. And being completely honest, Yuji's arsenal kind of is just better than Sukuna. He's just a better version of Sukuna. So this is kind of like a one-sided beatdown, even worse than Gojo versus Yuji. And I'll explain that as well. See, in his battle against Gojo, Yuji couldn't really use his curse technique because, well, he had to use domain amplification to get through Gojo's infinity. But in this case, Yuji can use his curse techniques. And simply, if he can use his curse techniques, means he can use that fucking humongous dismantle that he casually can do at Sukuna. What the hell is gonna Sukuna do to that kind of level of dismantle, bro? He's gonna get cooked. I genuinely can't think of a way that Sukuna will win against Yuji. It's just not close. Like, Sukuna, the only way he can win against Yuji if he has, let's just say Yuji doesn't have an open barrier domain, right? But then Yuji absorbed Gojo, shrinking down his domain and beating the hell out of Sukuna in under like 3 minutes and 11 seconds or something like that. So, what makes you think that Yuji cannot do the same? If not outright, if Yuji has an open barrier domain, he'll just beat the living crap out of Sukuna inside the domain because of the same reasons that he can beat the living crap out of Gojo inside the domain. And I've already established this in my previous videos where I say if Gojo had an open barrier domain, he would beat Sukuna rather mid to high difficulty. It would not be an extreme diff battle for Gojo. But Yuji, it's even worse because Yuji is better than Gojo in terms of hand-to-hand combat, and he can use his curse techniques, blood manipulation, freaking shrine at a level that even Sukuna can't use it. Sukuna's cooked. There's nothing that he can do against this version of Yuji, and that is it. No arguments are to be made. Yuji just absolutely dominates Sukuna, even worse than what he did to Gojo. But the interesting part, now this is where things really do get interesting. What if Gojo and Sukuna teamed up and said, bro, we need to team up in order to beat this guy because he's too damn strong? And they both kind of agree, and then they basically decide to team up. First things first, Gojo and Sukuna work really well individually. They do not have the concept of teamwork at all. So, to say the least, well, it's kind of screwed up. They are not going to work together. They're going to try to hit Yuji in their own way. Second option is that Gojo and Sukuna can go all out in this battle against Yuji because they don't have to worry about each other being in their way because they both are kind of relative in terms of strength, and they both know that they can basically handle each other, right? So Gojo and Sukuna are going all out from the get-go. This is now where the things get interesting. Two strongest fighters together, layered, pressured, constant threat against Yuji. Without domains, Yuji is still in favor, and I'll explain why. His dismantles can output, his base dismantle can probably cancel out Sukuna's Fuga and Gojo's freaking Hollow Purple if that ever were a case, right? Let's just say Gojo charges up a red, Yuji is gonna be like, that's not gonna affect me much, dismantle, and he's gonna cancel out the red. There's nothing that they can do, and not to say that Sukuna's dismantle are gonna do shit to Yuji. You're just not gonna be able to even like scratch him a bit. Maybe they'll scratch him a bit, but it will just use RCT to heal up. Gojo could do it, so can freaking Yuji. Now the wall cutting slash is an option, but the only reason that Gojo was cut in the wall cutting slash in the first place was because he was caught off guard, and since Yuji will know that Sukuna has the wall cutting slash, he will probably freaking avoid it at all times, right? So there's nothing that the wall cutting slash would even change. So the only way they can win this match even together is Gojo opens his unlimited void, since that's the only way still Gojo and Sukuna, even while teaming up, have the way to beat Yuji. While Gojo opens up his unlimited void, either Yuji will open his barrier domain, and in case he has an open barrier domain, then they're just kind of screwed. There's no way left for them to win. So if Yuji has an open barrier domain, they're just cooked. They're not gonna win. But let's just down nerf Yuji a bit, and let's just say he has a closed barrier domain, right? Inside the domain, we know unlimited void targets everything within its domain, any outside of anything that touches Gojo, and that's basically gonna be like a talking point within this. So what can happen is Yuji can constantly touch Gojo and avoid unlimited void, right? But the thing is, the domains are gonna be cancelled out. There's not gonna be any short effect in place. So the way that Gojo and Sukuna could go about this, they both can team up and beat the living crap out of Yuji inside the domain until he cannot maintain his domain anymore, which is a possibility. But again, as I said, Yuji is just that much superior in terms of hand-to-hand combat, and he can probably use his curse technique on Sukuna and take him out right there, and then he can deal with Gojo later. That's a possibility. The second possibility in which Gojo and Sukuna could actually win this thing is if Sukuna or Gojo can keep Yuji occupied long enough so that they could launch a Hollow Purple or a Fuga directly on Yuji. And that's the only win con that they have. And even if they land the attack, we know for a fact that Gojo can survive a Fuga and Sukuna can survive a fucking Hollow Purple to a damn face. So what makes you think that Yuji can't, right? He has higher durability at least, so he will most probably will survive it. Yeah, maybe he cannot maintain his domain anymore and unlimited void hits, but that is if Yuji even lets them land the fucking Fuga or the Hollow Purple in the first place. Yuji is smart enough to know that if the Hollow Purple or Fuga lands on his face, he is basically done for. And not to mention that his dismantle enough will be able to cancel out Fuga or Hollow Purple. So let's just say that Yuji goes all out in terms of dismantle. Let's just say Yuji can use fucking Fuga in the first place. What the hell are gonna Gojo and Sukuna do, right? Like if Yuji launches a Fuga by making some like binding wall, by making it like a little bit weaker but a little bit faster, that he can just basically gather the flames instantly, because that was the weakness that Sukuna had in terms of Fuga, that he could not use it outside of his domain, and even if he did, he could only use it on a single target, and the charge up time for Fuga was too much. And that was the reason why he didn't use it against Gojo, because it would basically be useless. But in this case, Yuji has Sukuna to use Fuga on, and bet your ass he will. If Yuji gets a chance to launch Fuga on Sukuna, he will use it, right? Yuji hates Sukuna's guts, so he will use it. And then the only way that Gojo can get out of that is, again, unlimited void is the only way they can win. But again, as I just said, Yuji is just so much stronger than Gojo and Sukuna in terms of output, and then, you know, eventually Gojo and Sukuna's output are gonna go down, but Yuji constantly landing soul damaging black flashes on them, his output is not gonna go down, so he's gonna be constantly launching dismantles at the level of Fuga and Hollow Purple at Gojo and Sukuna, and there's nothing they can do by that point. And let's just for God forbids sake say Yuji can use the world cutting slash, and at that point, what the hell is gonna Gojo do, man? Like, Gojo can't do shit, because Yuji at least knows the blueprint to launch the world cutting slash, that is to target the space that a target is existing within. And if Yuji can pull that off somehow, the way Sukuna did with binding wells and stuff, he outright wins the clash, and there's nothing Gojo and Sukuna can do. So yeah, the Gojo and Sukuna versus Yuji is kind of unfair at this point. Yuji basically wins if he fights against Gojo in a 1v1, low to mid diff. Again, if he fights against Sukuna 1v1, it's gonna be a low diff battle, because, you know, Yuji has to use domain amplification against Gojo, and against Sukuna he kind of doesn't have to. He can just launch a fucking dismantle and get Sukuna done with. And not to mention, if Yuji fights Gojo and Sukuna at the same time, the only win con that Gojo and Sukuna have is landing unlimited void on Yuji while his barrier is up, meaning if we are kind of nerfing Yuji here, by saying that he has a closed barrier domain and not an open barrier domain, and if he does have an open barrier domain, then he kind of wins outright. And also we are kind of nerfing Yuji on one more point, and that is that his domain is as refined as Gojo and Sukuna's, which it kind of probably isn't. It's kind of more refined, and we know that the more refined domain always wins the domain clash, so Yuji can just win that outright. But again, we are nerfing him to keep things a bit interesting, but even then things are not getting interesting because the battle is so one-sided dominant. Okay, so yeah, sorry to Gojo and Sukuna fans, but Yuji is just that guy now. He can live for freaking 300 years more, and with 300 years more worth of training, he might reach a level that well, I don't want to even imagine. He's already at a level that Gojo and Sukuna cannot beat him, and then if he gets 300 years worth more of training, my fucking god. But you know, agree or disagree, drop your skilling in the comments. What the hell do you guys think would happen if Gojo and Sukuna at the same time faced Yuji? And if you guys have any kind of different opinions, comment down below, and I'll be sure to read them and kind of respond to them if kind of I disagree or agree at the same time. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.